This video tutorial is to explain how this jig works that I make. Two things you'll need is a high-end grinder like this, or a lower grinder like Crosswell makes, 2x42 I believe. Another thing you need is a flat table. Doesn't matter where you make it from. Like in this case, I just use a leftover of my shelving that I was using. On my more professional grinder, I use just a flat stack of aluminum. The bigger the table is, the longer the knives you can grind, obviously. Keep in mind, the longer the knife, the heavier this side gets. The jig might tip, so you will have to hold it right here and put a pressure, light pressure on a jig when you grind, otherwise it might tip. I had cases where I was grinding 1/4-inch thick blades, and I had an incident that the jig tipped forward. So keep in mind, you're going to have to put your hand on it and keep attention on it for more heavier knives. Or if I can always custom make it heavier duty, longer if you're making 18 inches or longer knives. The way the jig works is you have clamps here. You clamp the blank of your knife. You can put it on any angle to get a ricasso. This knob right here, you control the angle of the jig itself. You can pivot back, you can pivot forward. This knob right here actually secures the angle of the jig. The way you grind, so you put the knife, basically it's real simple. Put it against the belt, yeah, and then you just move it to the side. Okay, you adjust the angle that you want, and you keep on grinding. Okay, then when you're done grinding one side, you flip the knife on this side. And what's good about this jig, the angle is already secure, so when you flip the knife and you grind on the left side, the angle of the bevel will stay the same because nothing moved. Everything's the same. Now another tip that I do personally, I use this carbide filing jig that I bought. Nothing fancy, you can use any two pieces of aluminum, drill holes, tap the thread and use that. I mean, this piece right here is 75 bucks. I don't know if you want to spend that much, but that's what it is. So I put the filing jig on one side and I clamp it to the knife. Now, when I remove this knife and I move it to the right side, this clamp stays with the knife. So when I put it on this side of the jig, everything stays the same. So you basically put this jig flat to the table, and you'll have exactly same spacing, exactly same everything on this side. I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically if you clamp this to the knife and you move this knife away from the jig, you flip it to this side of the jig, everything stays the same. So I usually use this grinding file to get my ricassos really true. So if I'll grind on this side with it, and then I flip all this to my right side and I'll grind on that side, the bevels will and the ricasso will stay the same.